Hello, Sarah Sabin, Transformational Leadership and Business Coach here. And I'm really excited to have my client with me today, Julian Barker, who is CEO of We Are Rise. Julian, hello.
Morning. I'm never sure what sort of titles people are going to ascribe to me because I've had a few over the years, but
Well, yes, I mean, you've got a few slashes going on with what you're doing at the moment, but
yeah,
I decided to give you that one for the purposes of today.
sounds very grand.
Well, it's very grand. Okay. So anyway, thank you for being here. And I'd like to just kick off by asking, why did you want to do coaching? About a year ago now, we first met.
Yeah, seems right. So you may well remember, I think I contacted you on LinkedIn first of all. And at that point in my career, I felt, having reached sort of over 50, I think clinically, I felt like I'd done a lot within my sort of specialty, which is cardiothoracic anesthesia and critical care, and things like started the ECMO service, and I think particularly after the pandemic as well. I felt clinically I didn't want to go down a kind of academic route or anything like that, and being a sort of service lead, I suppose, like a clinical director, or over recent years become a lot more interested in sort of service delivery and the kind of organizational structure and how that could be better, because there's lots of ways we could improve the NHS. But there was also the opportunity to do something in the private sector, because I'd started a company to deliver critical care to the local Spire hospital. And I wanted to be able to put some of that enthusiasm to good use. But I wasn't quite sure what to do. I thought that maybe I should leave clinical medicine and join a consultancy group, sort of management consultancy. But that would have been a big step to leave the NHS. And I needed somebody who was a good listener and with some serious objectivity to bring a view to that. I think you were really helpful in that you were able to give me exactly that objectivity and focus, really. I remember a few months ago, I think you said, "Aren't you glad you didn't join a management consultancy company?"
Yeah,
absolutely. I know that was the right decision, and I know things in big organizations and medicine, they don't move quickly. It's not like some sort of past tech industry, I suppose, where you might come up with some genius idea and then write the program and sell it and make millions. So progress it's been steady.
and I think we covered off quite soon after we met the decision, no, I'm not going to go down the management consulting route. And we got into the details of your entrepreneurial venture, which is We Are Rise, hence the title I gave you at the beginning. And I think it can be really scary to go from a very structured environment into running your own business, which you were doing anyway, alongside the medical work. So I would love to know a little bit more about some of the tangible progress in your business. So to outline that, there's been quite a few changes in direction. There's been new developments, including the potential opportunity to build a hospital at some point down the road as well. So would you mind going into some of the details of exactly what's been happening with We Are Rise?
So I think the easiest way to answer that is to break it down into the kind of the different work streams, I suppose you could call them. Yeah. So Rise started off as being a company that delivered medical services basically in the form of consultants and middle grade doctors to critical care at Spire, Manchester. But that had started to develop into supplying some junior doctors, like the ward doctors in Manchester. It also moved into supplying some middle grade critical care doctors to Nottingham. Nottingham and Manchester, quite similar spire hospitals, so got involved there. The other thing that's been separate but clearly related work stream was insourcing. So insourcing of medical services is using the NHS's own estate and sort of physical resources as opposed to their staff, but where the NHS contracts a group of clinicians, healthcare professionals to deliver usually operating lists, out of hours, weekends and evenings. And it's interesting because RISE was never set up to do that, but I got asked to do it by our local trust as the NHS waiting list grew and pressure on the services were becoming, the waiting list very high. So I got asked to do insourcing. So organising all that and sort of staying focused as to how we did that, and got on the NHS framework and legal contracts and et cetera, et cetera. So that became a whole separate branch, and that's still growing. So that was one thing. I talked about the tech stuff earlier, but through delivering junior doctors, I did become very frustrated with what is a very outdated bleep system. Without going into too much detail, way of calling the doctors and asking them to come back to the ward to do various tasks. But it's that thing about, is it necessity being mother of invention? I think came to the conclusion that
and most tech developments come out of a problem that we encounter in our day-to-day life.
Yeah. So I found it very frustrating. The doctor's been bleeped all the time. Damn pager going off all the time, and what's that now? And you never knew whether it was because somebody lost 3 pints of blood on the floor, or whether it was because somebody needed an insurance form signing, which obviously could wait until the end of the day or the week. So we developed an app to cope with that, and Spire have been very keen to let us pilot that. In fact, just yesterday I had a meeting about that, which is looking really promising.
Yay.
So yeah, no, that's great. And see that actually come to life now. We've had it developed, it exists, and I now have a phone and a tablet that talk to each other, and the app is there, it's in my hand, and it works. So that's really good. So we had insourcing, we have critical care services, we had the app. There's the development of cardiac surgery at Spire Manchester, which they didn't do before, but because I'm a cardiac clinician with lots of contacts, we're helping put that together. That is slow, but it's getting there. But that'll be a big deal to have cardiac surgery established in a new hospital. And as you alluded to there, lastly, there is the sort of I guess the big prize is to try and solve cardiac capacity in the Northwest, because it's dire. MFT has the longest waiting list at the moment in the country, has a lot of problems organisationally. It's big, there's a lot of politics involved, and the private sector hasn't really helped the NHS in Manchester. They just haven't cooperated very well, and the NHS could help the private sector in many ways as well. So that kind of joined up thinking isn't happening. So trying to bring the great and the good together in terms of, in the private sector and in within the NHS. I mean, I know it's a huge challenge, but there does seem to be some enthusiasm for doing that. So yeah, whether there's the possibility of expanding cardiac capacity to cope for the next 10 years or so, that would be great. So yeah, a few things there.
Indeed. And I also want to acknowledge you for being an avid networker. So in some of the endeavors you've built, I mean, you've managed to get a very prominent businessman involved in potentially creating this big picture vision for the future, and various other prominent individuals within the medical industry in the UK.
I'm not quite sure. I'll always remember you accusing me of imposter syndrome, which definitely it makes me laugh. And I didn't quite use those words, but I did say that to one of these guys that I was talking to last week, because as you know, he sits near me at the football. So I've definitely taken huge advantage of the fact that they moved his seat to quite near me. So, oh, fancy bumping into you again. And I said, oh, I can't quite believe I'm talking to all these different people.
Yeah, and they love talking to you. They're also suggesting meetings
Yeah.
to you as well, which is wonderful. So, I mean, I just want to, as a side note here, say that you have really opened up and broadened, diversified the potential income streams within the business, and you've also stopped doing one of the areas of the business that at the beginning was quite draining for you.
Yeah, and I think, I didn't mention that too much, but expanding the sort of junior doctor, across other hospitals, we went through a whole bidding process for that, and I think I learned quite a lot during that. It wasn't, it didn't come away with that completely empty-handed, because I think the fact that we dropped it was a good thing in the end, because I think it would have been an enormous hassle, and it was, as you know, it definitely sucked a lot of my energy over the last year or two. So I'm kind of glad of that. And I think the other thing we've talked about before is that having contracts and business arrangements with different organizations, I needed to do that as well, which is one of the reasons that the insourcing has been good, to have an NHS contract, or different NHS contracts, rather than everything in the Spire kind of boat. And I still need to, push that further. But getting there
100%. And I think, it's quite a common thing with clients that I work with. When you reach a stage of stability, it's quite often the case that one or two clients account for anywhere between 50 to 80% of the revenue, which is a very precarious position to be in, because of course you never know what's going to happen. So that diversification element is really, really important.
I mean, I still think about it, but at least I'm more aware of it and working on it. But
Okay, so wonderful. I would love to know as well, what were some of the intangible results that have happened as a result of working with me? So these are things like mindset shifts, different thinking, etc.
Bit more confident, I think, in my my own abilities, being able to focus a bit more. Your kind of, what your 3 takeaway messages from at the end of each session, that's been very good. I think it is that being focused on what actually needs doing, to what's the next hurdle to get over, who do I need to speak to, what am I actually putting off that needs doing to further this. So I think focus and confidence as well. I think they're the 2 main things. I think your and I was sort of talking about me, but I think your objectivity is really helpful. And the only other person that I speak to, who now is obviously closer to this than he was previously, is my brother, who is detached from the medical sphere. But I think both you and him have a great ability to listen to what are complicated scenarios, because there's a lot of names involved. You've never met any of these people, but who's who and what the sort of characters are, and because these are the all the people you're dealing with. I think you're extremely good at assimilating all that info. You don't have to say, sorry, who was that again, and I can't remember what they did, and you're very good at assimilating all that information and comprehending it. So I'm thinking like O-level English or something. Read this and understand it, and then answer these questions. I think you're very good at helping me see a situation and asking the sort of, the intelligent questions that make me think, oh yeah, I hadn't really thought of it like that. So I think that, so it's not just the objectivity, it is that assimilation of all that information. So right, cut the crap. What you need to do here is, you need to talk to that person, and these are the things that will be on their mind, and this is what that I think I've found that really really helpful. And it's interesting because Lisa, my wife, she's just said, I think since you've been having coaching from Sarah, things are you seem a lot more focused, and you've really helped. So that's been fab.
Awesome. I'd like to get that partner endorsement as well. Okay, so wonderful. And last question, would you recommend me as a coach?
Oh, I don't know.
It'd be a bit harsh.
Of course.
You were like, no.
Don't speak to this woman. Of course. Yeah, for all the reasons I've just said. Yeah, really, I'm extremely grateful that I don't know, serendipity, or whether I looked in the right place, or on just that managed to develop this working relationship, and I hope it continues. But it's, yeah, of course I would recommend you wholeheartedly. Been excellent.
Thank you, Julian. And it's been an absolute pleasure to see you develop and to see Rise develop. And I expect great, great things from you going forward. No pressure, no pressure.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
All right. So thank you very much. For anyone listening to this, if it has piqued your interest, please feel free to reach out to me. Bye-bye.